Hi Merlin, my name is FitzRoy. I'm the CEO of Bradda Head Lithium. Bradda Head is a UK, US and TSXV listed lithium explorer with projects in Arizona and Nevada. Our two flagship projects are our San Domingo Pegmatite district in Arizona and our Basin Project, which is a lithium clay project in Arizona also.
Charles, good to see you. Thank you for the introduction. It's been a long time since you've been on Crux. It's been about a year. The market has been tough right across the resources sector. And although lithium companies have fared better than base metal and gold companies, it's also been tough for lithium companies as well. A couple of weeks ago, in fact, it was probably just last week, you published an open letter to shareholders, kind of talking about the position of the company. You spoke about some of the headwinds, you spoke about some of the opportunities, and the position of the company. And today I'd like to kind of just talk through that letter and kind of talk about some of the bigger themes that you raised in that letter. But it looks to me as if you're not in your usual place where are you taking this interview from?
I'm in London currently, just up there for a couple of weeks over in August.
Excellent. Good. Well, London, a fine place to be. Perhaps kind of I know it's not dealt with immediately in your open letter, but one of the things that jumps out at me is the auditing issue, the fact that you haven't filed your accounts, and there's this kind of slightly frightening phrase in there, the management ceased trade order. Could you tell me about what's happening about the Canadian accounts and how this affects the UK accounts?
Yes, I agree. MCTO or Management Ceased Trade Order is definitely quite an aggressive term, but it's just the terminology used to sort of, from the Canadian regulatory point of view, to demonstrate that we have got a ceased trade order whilst we have got an agreed delay in filing our TSXV accounts. Our AIM accounts are on schedule to be filed on time. TSXV accounts, which required to be filed within 120 days of your financial year end, whilst AIM accounts have a 6-month requirement to file. So that's the difference between the two. So it's 4 months versus 6 months. And the reason why our TSXV accounts weren't filed on time is because we changed our auditor. Our auditor, which was the Isle of Man, KPMG Isle of Man, were not CPAB authorised. So they weren't authorised to file for a dual listed company who was listed in Canada also. So let's find out.
CPAB, what's that?
Canadian Public, yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's a Canadian.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just it's authorization to be able to file accounts for a TSXV listed company. So we then changed our auditor to PKF Littlejohn. PKF Littlejohn are in the process of getting up to speed, and we'll be filing our accounts before the AIM deadline, which is towards the end of this month. So we are on track to be able to file our accounts on time. And that's just the difference between the TSXV is 120 days after the financial year end. Our financial year end is end of February. It's a bit of an unusual one. And then the AIM accounts are within 6 months of the financial year end. So that's why we didn't file our TSXV accounts on time, but there's nothing nefarious there. And we are on track to get it all filed before the end of the month.
Storm in a teacup, nothing to see here, move on.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah. Good. Okay, and so just in terms of filing the AIM account 6 months from February, so that takes you to the kind of in the next couple of weeks you'll be filing your AIM accounts.
Correct. Yep.
And that will give an up-to-date cash figure for the company. Will it give the cash position as at the end of February?
Correct. Yes.
And a year ago, you mentioned that you had $16.5 million on cash on hand. Do you have to file quarterly cash reports in because you're on the TSXV, or are you on the AIM? So you only do it every 6 months.
You're correct there. TSXV is quarterly, but with the late filing the TSXV financial year accounts, we will be filing our Q1 accounts very shortly after we do our financial year end accounts. So yeah, we'll have our TSXV Q1 accounts shortly afterwards.
Okay, and can you comment on your cash position? Can you kind of give me an indication of kind of where the treasury sits?
Well, we announced in our presentation earlier this year that at the end of March we had just under $7 million US in the in the bag. So that's really a good indication of where we were at the end of March, which is obviously after our financial year account ends.
Okay, good. And you also talk in your recent correspondence with the market, you've talked about being funded for the work program for the remainder of this year. Could you just kind of outline what that work program is going to entail?
So we have been busy drilling our Basin Project, which is our 17 square kilometre clay project in Arizona. And we're going to be putting an updated resource out shortly. So that program is coming to end, and we'll have an announcement out in the not too distant future highlighting the finalisation of that drill program and also giving an update on when we receive our resource statement to come through. So that's one of the programs which we're talking about. The next program which we're talking about is the phase 3 drilling program at San Domingo, which is our 31 square kilometre pegmatite district in Arizona. And that second program is kicking off very shortly. This month we'll be drilling. The rig is mobilised and the drilling will be starting very shortly. The first two... Sorry?
So, yeah, I mean, let's get into San Domingo in a bit, but just on Basin, it's a clay project, and in this market, it feels to me that kind of clay assets aren't really being valued. Is part of the stimulus for drilling this so that you can book the 1 million tons of lithium LCE resource to trigger the royalty payment? Is that part of the motivation to kind of get that $2.5 million royalty payment in?
Well, that is part of the reason, yes, but also there's many other factors to it. You know, Basin we have a belief in. The $2.5 million is obviously very helpful in the current market. The 1 million ton resource is the sort of the number where we can kick off our PEA study, because we needed a sizable resource in place before we do any economic studies in place. And, you know, the beauty of Bradda Head's split of assets, we have the brines up in Nevada, the clays in Arizona, the pegmatites in Arizona. We have sort of near and medium term the drivers for projects. You know, we have the ability with the pegmatites to be able to get something into production much quicker than, say, the clays or the brines, which rely upon developing technology to some extent. The pegmatites are very well understood. The capital costs are lower. The processing is very straightforward. You're making an intermediate product. You're making a 6% roughly spodumene concentrate. Whilst the clays, you're making an end product. So, you know, we are going to be developing the clay project as we go. We're increasing our resources. We're permitting to be able to drill Basin West, the West Extension, which is an 11 square kilometre area of the Basin Project, and that will come through next year. We'll start drilling there next year at some point. But we see San Domingo as the near-term driver for the company. Basin is always going to be there, and we believe in it, and we're doing all the work to make sure it's a long-term project. And so hopefully that answers your question. You know, it's not just purely for the royalty payment. It is because we have belief in the project.
Okay, I mean, at the moment in the market, you may have belief in it, but it's not being reflected in your valuation. And I think one of the key challenges with clay projects is this is the lack of kind of working examples. The fact that it hasn't got a proven pathway with existing clay producers. So, in a sense, there will always be a far-dated option, which is reflected in the market, in your market capitalization. So let's look at San Domingo. You said that we're on the third phase of drilling, and you were about to say what the first two phases of drilling had kind of outlined, and kind of it'll inform. So what can you just tell us what the first two phases found and what you're looking to do with this with the third phase?
Yes, so the first two phases kicked off last August. So just under a year ago, they kicked off really in earnest, and that finished earlier this year. Those first two phases focused on the Northern Claims Block and the Central Claim Block, all in BLM land, so federal land. This next program is phase 3. It's going to be starting in the Northern Claim Block, then moving on to Central Claim Block, and then also moving into the state section of our Central Claim Block. So it's more federal and state land. And that central state section is the Morning Star target, which we've shown has historical drill data showing the presence of spodumene-bearing pegmatites. So we're very excited about that. We're starting up in the north, which is our Midnight Owl area, where we had our best intercept to date. It was about 32 meters at 1.6% Li2O. So putting that in context for lithium projects around the world, a lot of resources in place in Australia between 1 and 1.4%. Their cutoff grade's about 0.5%. So it's a very good intercept. And the fact this first phase 1 and phase 2 programs, we hit mineralization in 60% of the holes is really promising. So we're building upon those first 2 phases of the program. And we've also done follow-up soil geochemistry work, structural mapping, and we've reviewed the geophysical data we have done previously. And all this has led into this design of this program where we know much more about the area, understand the structure much better. And the soil geochemistry has been phenomenal in helping us identify spodumene outcrops at the surface, which we were not aware of because we've got a huge area. The announcement this morning showed that we've now identified 387 more occurrences of spodumene at the surface than previously thought, and the soil geochem has been instrumental to us finding that. So we know so much more about the area, and this next program is really geared towards delineation of a resource. So that's really what we're focusing on. A sort of shallow drip. Sorry.
I think one of the key things in a lithium pegmatite is always about building up tons, because these bodies are quite blebby. They're quite irregular in shape, and they can be narrow and small. And I think one of the crucial things in a discovery is building a critical mass where you can actually start to put together or find the larger occurrences in a pegmatite swarm. I know that your kind of 32-meter intersection was a good intersection, but when I was looking through the rest of the numbers, they all seem quite narrow. And when I look at the cross sections, the kind of the idealized or the schematic cross sections that you've produced as a company, quite a lot of these are kind of small dikes, quite narrow and quite thin. I just wondered, have you got an ability or some kind of exploration tool that helps you target for the bigger mass or the kind of the larger dimension bodies? Because I mean, really, that's going to be crucial in a discovery program or an exploration program, is to find the larger volume occurrences.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's really what this program is geared towards. That's all the work has gone into since that phase 1 and phase 2. The soil geochemistry helps us understand prospective areas for focusing drilling around. The ground truthing as well aligns that soil geochemistry with known occurrence of spodumene, and the structural mapping we've done helps us understand from the drilling we've done to date the structure of the pegmatites we have. That 32-meter intercept was found due to us. It was we were getting into that phase 1 program. We were towards phase 2, and we were already understanding what was going on. And that intercept was found to the north, drilling at sort of 90 degrees to where we were drilling previously, because we realized there was a fault. And it was actually about 25 meters below surface, and there was no showing a surface of that best intercept. So really, that first program, the fact we hit mineralization in 60% of the holes, as you noticed, some of them are between 2 to 15 meters in intercepts. That was the first scout program, and this next program is really building upon that first program. We know a lot more, and we are really targeting now delineation of shallow resources, and that's what we're focused towards. We're very much aware of that, and we want to get towards a technical study, and we need a resource in place to do that. And so this next program is targeted on that. Of that effort is to delineate a shallow resource out San Domingo, and that's the focus of it.
Have you got do you have geophysics that helps you kind of target at depth, or is your targeting at depth driven by data from drilling?
Well, actually, it's very interesting you say that, because we did some geophysical work quite early on, until 21, 22, and we reviewed that geophysical work, cross-referencing it to drill data and soil geochemistry. And the geophysics have been fantastic, especially when we have a pegmatite at surface, because we did a mapping program, an aerial mapping program, SRK, which identified over 1,500 pegmatites at surface. And we've seen from the geophysics, we see signal of potentially deeper pegmatites below surface, which overlap and carry on past some of the known pegmatites at surface. So it's been really a good tool for us. The geochemistry is fantastic because lithium is a very mobile element, and we use the soil geochemical ratio. We use a lithium cesium rubidium ratio, because cesium and rubidium are less mobile elements, and that ratio helps us really understand where we should be targeting drilling. So all these things are helping us. Morning Star, for example, is a great example because we have drill data from the 40s and 50s showing that there is spodumene bearing pegmatites below surface. We don't have the assay data, but also we have an overlap with the geophysics showing that potentially the pegmatites continue to the north and south below ground where we can't see them. So all of these elements we're using together, we're using it in a very sort of technical, strategic way to really give this drill program the best possible opportunity for us to develop a resource in play at San Domingo, and that's really what we're doing.
Good. What's the scale of what's your drill budget in meters?
We're going to allow up to 10,000 meters. Obviously, it is a success-driven program, so that's really what's going to drive this, and that's what we'll focus on.
And how long are you planning that program to take? I mean, if 10,000 meters would take you up to where?
We're allowing up to 6 months for the whole program to be finished.
So potentially drilling for the rest of this year and into early 2024.
Correct. Yeah.
I couldn't help but go back and watch the interview you did a year ago, and you said the company's in a really strong place. You've got cash and you've got 3 projects, and the share price has come down significantly since then. So, where would you say the company is now? I mean, would you be shy of saying that the company is in a strong place again?
I think the company has some very prospective projects, and we have belief in all our brine, pegmatite, and clay projects. But we've had to make some decisions. We've had to prioritize because the market is not where it is 12 months ago. Yeah, everyone's in a different position, and we are trying to stretch our funds as far as possible. So we prioritized on our Basin Project and San Domingo. The company has a lot of projects. These two in itself are company builders, and we're focusing on where we see maximum potential for return to shareholders. We've got a strong cash balance to be able to do our work programs for this year. We've got the royalty payments coming in, and that's what we're focusing on now. We're focusing on doing our work, getting the message out to market, and we believe that that's going to return to us to a positive share price movement because we have some very strong projects and we've got some big catalysts on the way. We've got the resource coming from our Basin Project, which we're targeting a plus 1 million ton resource, and San Domingo. It is a pegmatite project in Arizona. There's not many of those about. Having a viable US pegmatite project is really important for us, and also for potentially other companies looking at projects and having US pegmatites. If there are companies building spodumene conversion facilities in the US who will need supply, and we are located in the western US in the burgeoning electric vehicles battery metal supply hub. So we're in a fantastic location. Our projects are near infrastructure. Both of them are 7 miles off the highway. We have very close by renewable energy sources, and we've got a phenomenal location for all the projects. So I think we're in a strong position as a company strategically, and we're in a bit of a bumpy market right now, but we've got enough cash to be able to push forward our programs, and we've done some cash stretching for the budget, and that's the most important thing.
Do you think that 10,000 meters is enough to get you to a resource? I mentioned this because I find it hard to drill out resources, and I think it always takes more meters than you think. And to me, it still feels as if San Domingo is almost at a pre-discovery stage, in the sense that you've got some good indications for further exploration, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure that it's a discovery yet. Once you really start getting consistent, good thicknesses, and you're onto some once you can hook 3 or 4 or 5 of these bigger pegmatites, then I think that perhaps you could call it kind of a discovery. But it still feels a bit pre-discovery, and to me, it feels a bit early to be calling it a kind of a resource drill out program. I mean, does that worry? I mean, how do you think about it?
Well, the goal of the program is to delineate a resource. We have a lot of pegmatite. We have 1,500 pegmatites showing a surface, and our best intercept is starting at 25 meters from surface. So we have a lot of these pegmatites are pretty shallow. So we really don't have to do a huge amount of drilling to get down to potentially where we'd see the shallow resource. Obviously, with San Domingo, we have belief in a potential for deeper structures too. But this program is really focused on shallow drilling. And that's really where we see the program going forwards. We have some areas where we've got known occurrences of lithium-bearing minerals, and we're going to be drilling extensions of those areas. And that's where we're going to see, hopefully, resource potential. And then we have areas like Morningstar, where we know there's spodumene-bearing pegmatites going down to depths of 100 meters, which are open as well. And we have the geophysical data there. So we have a huge amount of potential at San Domingo. And all the work we've done has demonstrated the presence of a 9-kilometer trend of lithium seeds in tantalum style mineralization, like you have in the projects in Australia, where we see economic potential. We've now been ground truthing those anomalies, and we're seeing spodumene in areas where we hadn't found previously. So we've got that sweet spot of the right sort of geochemistry, the right lithium bearing minerals, and it appears that our 9-kilometer trend is the perfect distance from the host rock to be able to for the spodumene to be present. And that's the key thing for us. We've got the right geochemistry. It's in the right location in Arizona in the US, and this program is really quite exciting. Yeah, we're the high up the team, as you can imagine. Can't wait to get drilling. We are drilling this. Yeah, we'll be announcing we'll be drilling very shortly.
Good. Well, I look forward to seeing the results coming through from that. Stepping back from your projects and looking at the wider market, the lithium price was $85,000 per ton in November. It hit a low of 21,000. It's popped back up to around 33,000. What's your sense of, and I know that you're kind of head down in exploration and all that kind of stuff, but what's your sense of the kind of the wider market and where we are in the cycle, please?
Yeah, whilst we are head down exploration, we always have to make sure we're aware of the long-term pricing. It is something which we constantly track, and we look at the long term. 2 years ago when we listed, the pricing for the long term was around $12,000 a ton. Now we're at the $20,000+ a ton, so that is moving in the right direction. And as you said, spot pricing now is plus 30, which is a very, very positive place for any of our projects. So we see it as a great spot. If you look at the comparison between the first sort of lithium wave back in 2018, 2019, the lows then were down to $6,000 a ton. The low now, the second wave, have gone down to $21,000 a ton. So that's dramatically higher than the previous low. So we're very positive in the lithium outlook, and we've seen delays in projects, especially in the sort of DLE space. And it's very clear that from us that the projects that are consistent and can scale up in times of higher prices are the spodumene projects. We've seen that back in 2018, 2019. We've seen it recently in Australia. So that's why really San Domingo is such an exciting prospect for us, because it doesn't have any technical issues or any sort of not issues. It doesn't have any complications from a processing point of view. It's very straightforward, very simple. Just making a spodumene concentrate through very well understood processing technology, which have lower capital costs than DLE or clay projects. So that's why San Domingo for us is our potential for the biggest return we have for shareholders. That's what we're very excited about. And the lithium prices to date are very supportive of that project and also of our other projects.
I hear your point about the long-term consensus on pricing having risen over the years. There's, contrast to that, there's in some ways a kind of a capital strike. The equity markets are separate to the kind of the industry. So the industry forecasts are continuing to rise, but the equity markets are in a risk of downward trend. Have you got any kind of sense of what that cycle is like, or kind of what's your interaction with the stock market like, other than watching the share price of Bradda Head Lithium on a daily basis?
Obviously we take a keen interest in investors and what the markets are doing. We are in the summer. It's traditionally a low volume period. and we see that as well in our stock. But we've had some really good trading this August. We've had some good news flow out. The open letter was very well met from investors, and we've got a lot of news flow coming. Recently, we've just announced the rig mobilization, the increasing of our claims, the basin drilling. Everything is showing still excitement in the company. I think from a equity point of view, we perceived that the bottom has been hit in the lithium equity prices, and from a perspective, I think this is a fantastic time to be investing in lithium stocks. So obviously, I'm very keen for everyone to invest in Bradda Head, but I really do believe it. We are at a point where you're seeing an increase in M&A. That's a classic sign that the market is hit a point where people should be looking at it from an equity investing point of view. And the lithium market is going to have consolidation. It's a point where there's a lot of projects in the US, around the world. Larger suppliers will want consolidation of projects to be able to secure their supply. And that's what we see a lot happening in the next 12 months. I think from Bradda's point of view, we have got phenomenal projects in locations which are envious from a lot of people. There's a huge amount of drilling going on in Canada, which is showing very positive, but it is high cost comparison to drilling where we are in Arizona. So we have a low potential discovery cost assets in a place where it's very close to, for example, Tesla is constructing its spodumene conversion facility in Texas. That's very close to Arizona. There's one in Carolina. These projects are being developed, and then obviously northern Mexico, you've got a huge potential for battery supply hub there too. So we're in a location near infrastructure, near renewable power, near the end users, where it's easy and low cost to drill out these projects and develop. LG Chem have got a $5.5 billion battery facility just down the road from us near Phoenix. We're near the end users, and once we demonstrate the potential for San Domingo or Basin to be a viable project, I think the valuation multiple for Bradda is going to skyrocket, personally.
But you can't get away from the trend. And as a friend of mine, when I used to work at HSBC, we were in a downtrend, and he said, "Merlin, don't try and catch a falling grand piano." In a sense, there has to be a catalyst. There has to be a time, for a poor beleaguered equity investor who's been beaten up. In a sense, you've just got to wait until the catalysts come through, and perhaps those are really strong drill results from San Domingo. Maybe that's the point where and someone new to the story will say, okay, now this is potential to turn this share price trend and the market trend, kick out of the trend.
Well, yeah, we've got two big catalysts, as you said. San Domingo is a huge catalyst, but also the fact we've got non-dilutive cash coming in potentially when we hit our resource tons in the not too distant future. So we've got two massive catalysts there, which will obviously reassure investors that we're not going to go out into the market, to try and raise funds very shortly. We've got cash coming in. And that's a key thing, I think, for us as a junior explorer, which is quite unusual at the moment, having that cash coming in from a non-dilutive source.
Good. Well, good luck with it all. Thank you very much for the update, and perhaps it'd be good to see you again when you kind of have ticked off those catalysts and kind of come in and tell me I told you so.
I hope so too, man. I look forward to it.